Today we're adding a button band to our onesie, and with this method you can actually add a button band to any onesie that you want. Doesn't matter with the sizes or the stitch count or the needles for that matter. It's just a method. This is going to be the last video in this series about knitting a onesie, so this is the last tutorial. This was kind of a redo of the other series that I did with the green yarn. I can link it somewhere. This has sort of been both a better pattern, but also I have, I hope, answered some of your questions regarding this onesie. For this I'm again going to be using my interchangeable needle set, and I am still on the 6mm and the longest cable I can find. We're going to pick up stitches here on the sides, on the opening on this onesie, and it can be pretty tough with the 6mm if that is what you knitted on. So if you have the ability to use these interchangeable needles, I would suggest that you go back and exchange your needles for some that are smaller. With this interchangeable needle set, I can just change the one that I'm going to pick up with, and then I can use the other one to knit. You're going to pick up a number of stitches that is divisible by 2, so that means that you can do a 2x2 rip. If you need another stitch at the end, just pick up in between where the needles have, or where these stitches are separated. So now I'm going to go back. I have picked up a stitch for every row, and I am going to just knit in 2x2 rip back and forth. This is going to be the part where the buttons go, and we're going to do the buttonholes in a second. So when you get down here to the end, just turn and go back. If you did change your needles, of course, remember to go back to a 6mm again, to your, or the pattern doesn't call for 6mm, but go back to whatever you were already using. It is the needle that you knit onto that decides what sizes the stitches are going to be. Now cast off all of the stitches. I'm just using a normal pass over cast off. I have no idea if that is what it's called, but I'm knitting one and then I'm passing over the stitch before it, and knitting one and passing over the stitch before it. And when I get to purl, I'm just purling one and passing over the stitch before it. So that was hopefully pretty easy. That is one side, and now we're going to pick up the same number of stitches on the other side, and again I have switched to a smaller needle, and then you will knit about 1/2 inch of 2x2 ribbing. Now count the number of stitches that you picked up. I picked up 74, so that's what I'm going to do this calculation on. I want 8 buttonholes, so I'm going to take my 74 stitches and I'm going to divide it by 8. This gives me 9.25. Because I cannot knit 0.25 stitches, I'm going to round down to 9, but I'm going to remember that I will have about 2 stitches more in the end than I have already calculated with, because 0.25 times 8 is 2. So I am always going to be 2 off, but it's over 74 stitches, so it shouldn't matter too much. Now I have a number which is 9, and that means that I have 8 segments of 9 stitches on this button band. I know that I want to do a buttonhole which is 5 stitches high or wide, if you will, and therefore I'm going to say 9 minus 5, and that is 4. So on each of these 8 segments I'm going to have a buttonhole of 5 stitches, and I'm going to have a dividing area of 4 stitches. Because I don't want my first buttonhole to be all the way up at the top, I am going to add half of this dividing space, so half of the 4, which is 2, to the top of the button band. So first I'm going to knit 2, then I am going to knit a buttonhole, and then I will knit 4. And then I'm going to repeat that until the end. At the end I am going to end up with 2 stitches. But as you remember, we had 2 stitches to spare. So in between all of these buttonholes, there are going to be 2 places where I'm going to knit 5 in between instead. I could also have put them up at the top so that I was starting with 3 stitches and ending on 3 stitches, but that is up to you. So I calculated that I need 2 stitches to begin with. And I'm always knitting in pattern. When I'm above a knit, I'm knitting, and when I'm above a purl, I am purling. So now I'll start my buttonhole. I will start by slipping the first stitch with the yarn in front. Then I'll put it to the back, and I will slip the next stitch. And then I will pass the second stitch on the right needle over the next stitch. So now I've bound off 1, then I'll slip 1, pass 2, slip 1, pass 3, and let's do 4, slip 1 and pass. Okay, so now there is a hole here, and we are going to return this stitch to the left needle, and we will turn all of it. Okay. Now I'm going to use a cable cast on to cast on stitches. If you don't want to do that, stay on this side and do one of these. So you're just going to wrap it around your index finger and put it here, and you'll just do that. How many did we cast off? 5? So you'll do that 6 times. But I'm going to do this. It's a little bit more complicated, but it's not that difficult. You insert your needle between these 2 first stitches. So not into this stitch, but behind it. And then you knit it. Okay? And put it on the left needle here. And you're just going to repeat that. So you're going to go behind this new stitch and knit. So basically pull the yarn through to the front and put it on the needle. And you'll do that again. Go behind it. Make sure not to lose it. Pull it out and put it on the left needle. And you're going to cast on 6. So there are 3. So I'll just do 3 more. Okay, so now we have the bound off hole and we have the top of the hole here. So we're going to flip the work back, make sure to untangle that end, and now we are going to pass the last stitch. Remember, we only cast off 5, but we have cast on 6, and I can see here that I am on a knit. So I'm going to knit those 2 together. So the knit stitch here and the last stitch which I cast on. So there we go. There's a buttonhole. And I need 4 stitches in between. So there are... Okay, I should have purled that. Doesn't matter. I'm going to do 4, 2, 3, 4, and then I am going to repeat that. So when I get down to the other side, I will have 7. Then I'll do the last buttonhole, and then there should be 2 or 3 left for me. And of course, this is going to be different if you have a different stitch count. Continue to knit in 2x2 rib until you have about an inch on this side also, and then you will cast off all stitches. And you're done! Or, you know, you have to sew in all the ends and maybe add some buttons, but then you're done.